99% of people say I'm in the property industry, and I'd say you're all wrong. You're in construction with a little bit of property. You got the novice property developer, done a one-day rent-to-rent deal stacking course trying to work out the cost. Doesn't work like that. But people just steam into property because they've watched Homes Under the Hammer. That is how it goes wrong for so many people. Labour costs will go up by 8%. Have you factored in that 8% labour right? You haven't. But how you run your business is nothing to do with me. And if you can't afford to run it, honestly, mate, I don't care. I would always go for new builds. You are guaranteed a chunk of money. I'm a real big advocate for modern methods of construction. From an ex-tradesman's point of view, I'm dead against it. This can be life-changing. As much as there's big chunks of money to be made, there's equally as big chunks of money to be lost. Well, if you ever find yourself as the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Or if you start to think you're the smartest person in the room, you're in trouble. Another big part of my role is saying to the client, we need to de-risk this project, and the biggest risk here is you. You're the only one here who don't know what you're doing. Look, if it was easy, everyone would do it. He weren't up for it, so I don't know what happened to that bloke. Yeah, terrible.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Property People. Today, I am delighted to be joined by an incredibly experienced person, Mr. Dave Ford. How are you today, Dave?
I'm good, thanks, Sam.
Good. Looking forward to this conversation. Dave, you are a chartered construction consultant and manager and property developer, a mentor, a Sky TV construction expert with over 42 years of experience across all sectors, from construction and engineering industries, having worked with industrial, commercial, pharmaceutical, residential, healthcare, rail. And over the last 20 years, you've been working on some large infrastructure projects as well across London. The first time I met you, you didn't know about it because you were on a Sky TV program. I think it was on broadcast across YouTube in the property game, and then we bumped into each other at a awards ceremony, and then again at a networking event, and here we are today. So I'm really, really happy to be able to pick your brains, get some insights of what looks like a really interesting career. But before we get into all of that, I want to go back to when you were at school.
Right.
And what type of person were you? Did you always know you were going to be in construction? Did you always know you'd be on TV?
No, not at all. If you go back to when I was at school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was quite academically gifted, but I would say that, I didn't know what I wanted to do. My dad, he was, he had an M&A firm, mechanical and electrical firm, but he also did property development on the side. Mum and Dad was from Ireland, so him and his Irish builder mates would buy houses up north. I've come from Islington, North London. So
I couldn't tell by the accent.
So they would buy those three-storey, I don't know what they are, Georgian or Edwardian houses, and convert them into flats. So from an early age, I was going to work for him. When I was 10, I was going there on Saturday, to sweep up and go and get the teas. And when it came time to leave school, but you got to understand, I'm going to talk about some things. We're in 2024 now. I'm going back to the past. Past is a different place. They do things differently there, But anyway, so when it came to the age of 16, leaving school, I had two options: go to university. So stay on in the sixth form, do A-levels, go to university, or carry on working with my dad. Now, my dad was an alcoholic, right? So it was chaos working with him. He was constantly drunk. There was no health and safety.
Wow.
Like, no one ever paid tax, ever. He was got enough for a 16-year-old kid. I thought, what do I want to start school for? This is what I want to do. And my mum said, start school, and my dad, I said to my dad, get me an apprenticeship. I want to be a spark electrician. He said, don't do it, son, it's a mug's game. Don't do it. No. So that's how I sort of started my career, if you like.
Wow. With an alcoholic father, but was in the building trade, and when you said that you wanted to be a spark, he said, don't do it. Your mum said, do stay in school, so who did you listen to?
Well, I listened to my dad. Sorry, I didn't listen to either of them. I went with my dad.
Oh, right, I
Yeah.
see. Because, construction. And it was really that it was the fact that you had somebody like that around you that inspired you to get into that industry. And you didn't like you'd ever think, oh, I want to, get into boxing or get into, being a lawyer or get into anything else. It was just was there a lot of construction work around at that time?
Yeah, so we're going back to the very early 80s when it was very heavy labour intensive,
Right.
and there was work everywhere. There was always
Right.
work, even in recessions and that. And you didn't have to be particularly good at it, you would always find a job. So I just saw it. I saw it was this constant, easy money. And I could say with the refurbishing flats, etc., you could also get big chunks of money. And it just seemed to be the thing to do. It seemed quite easy at the time.
At the time, and things have changed over the years, which will come up to the modern day. But one thing that I noticed as well, as I was doing a bit of research around you, is that you've got quite a few letters after your name. So you've got the MCIOB, you've got the MIET, and the MAPM. So for somebody that didn't go to school, you definitely have done some grafting and done some studying along the way.
Yeah. So, how can I put this? Although it may appear that I followed the traditional route and done an apprenticeship, you got to remember I did it with my dad, so it was just chaos. And I was on a drink with him every single day and all that. And I got taught a really, really bad way to behave and conduct yourself, and I thought it was normal. I really did. And so as I've grown up into a young man, I've carried on like that. And then my mum and dad moved back to Ireland. And then I was left there on my own. And in between, I'd lived in the Middle East for 7 years, and I'd worked out there.
Whereabouts in the Middle East?
I lived in Israel, but I was done some work in Lebanon as well, and down in Egypt.
Very nice.
And so I sort of carried on as I was, but now I'm in the big wide world, and people are just not going to tolerate this. And all of a sudden, it was a struggle. It weren't a big laugh, rocking up drunk every day. Guys going, yeah, well, get your tools, and oh, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? Why is he so miserable? Like, you know what I mean? So
Maybe because you weren't sharing it with him.
yeah, because that's not the way to behave, And then in 1997, I got my first chance in major infrastructure. That was on the railway on the Jubilee Line extension. And I got
Nice.
exposed to an entire different world. Now you're in a world where people are really doing things properly, and the systems and processes,
Yeah.
and everyone's got a degree, and people follow proper careers. And I'm sitting and I'm thinking, I've never heard of that before. I didn't know you did things like this. There were all these safety procedures. And I'd done that for a couple of years, and I realised that's where the money was. That is where the money was. And I started thinking, hang on, they're telling me to do this, they're providing me this safety stuff. I never had all that before. And I started realising, but this is how it should be. So I've moved into that world, the major infrastructure, realised that was where the money was. Then I realised for being a spark on the tools, if you were a foreman, you'd get more, so it's maybe way there. Now, if you're a site manager, you would get even more, Then if you're an assistant project manager, it's more. And I realised the way to do that is I needed to get into the office environment. But that's a totally different ballgame, But I managed to get in there. We're going on for the years now. And I managed to get in there. And what I realised was I'd be sitting in these big important meetings, and every single person now is a chartered architect, or they're an electrical engineer with a degree and a master's, and I've got all these people and I've got nothing. I'm just a spark, right? And I thought, I need to be good at this, right? I need to get in a position where, regardless I don't have the formal qualifications, I have to be so good that no one can pull me up and say, this guy's don't know what he's doing. He ain't even got a degree. I had to be better than them. And so that's what I did. I always was looking around, listening, thinking, that person over there, what's their job? What do they do? What do you need to get that job? You know, what qualifications? And I was studying in my spare time and that, and then I sort of got, you know, I'm not going to say I got to the top of infrastructure. I got into senior management, and then I realised after that there's another level when you do your professional qualifications. So what those letters after my name mean is MCOB. I'm a chartered construction manager with the Chartered Institute Building. I've studied for chartership and I've been deemed of a sufficient standards to call myself a chartered manager. MIAT, I'm a member of the Institute of Engineering and Technology, and that's because of my electrical background. And MAPM, I'm a member of the Association of Project Management. You know, I had to show my qualifications, experience, and all these professional bodies have recognised that I've got sufficient competence, skill, and experience. And I've also got my consultancies chartered as well, not just me. So that's just what happened, you know. And probably my old man going back to Ireland was the best thing that happened.
Dropped you in that deep end, but then you landed. You said you were sitting around a table with all these other people, and rather than get intimidated by them, you thought, you know, what do I need to do to get there? You got inspired by them.
Oh, that was a blessing, working with these people. You're with people who are at the top of their game, and it's a real thing to aim for, you know. And I must say, I'm very, very lucky. There's been so many people who've helped me. But when they didn't have to, you know, there was nothing in it for them. But they took the time to show me what was going on. And that, in a way, is what inspires me to continue striving for success and excellence. I feel these people give a bit of their life to me, and the least I can do is pay them back by being as good as I can.
Fulfilling your potential. And, you know, sometimes there's that old adage, which is it's best not to be the smartest person in the room, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to grow. Some people get intimidated by being that, and they like being a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
But some people actually become that goldfish, and no matter how big that kind of pond gets, they grow with it. And that seems exactly how you've performed in your career.
Well, if you ever find yourself as the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Or
There you go.
if you start to think you're the smartest person in the room, you're in trouble. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's you know, all these things are, like, from a mindset perspective in terms of being successful, I think are important, and you're certainly testament to that. And one of the I'm really pleased that you actually explained those acronyms, because I didn't know what they were, and they all make sense now. And I remember actually when we met at the last event, I introduced you to somebody, and I didn't even know how to introduce you. I was like, quantity surveyor, was it project manager?
Yeah.
And you were like construction manager. So if you could also just help us out a little bit and explain the difference between a development manager, a construction manager, a project manager. I think those are the main ones. I think quantity surveyor, people should know that they count bricks.
All right, so probably the easiest way to explain it is out of all the disciplines in what we call the built environment or the construction industry, you got quantity surveying, project management, architecture, quality assurance, materials technology. A construction manager has a holistic grasp of all those things, has a good understanding of all those things.
Right.
You know, we need to be able to sit above a whole project and look down and think, right, there's a project management element to that. What is involved in it? There's a quantity surveying, cost, procurement, etc. There's a contractual element to it. We need to understand contracts laws well. We're not experts in everything, but we must understand why they play a role in a project, and we need to understand, as the project's going along, is that element being fulfilled by the right person? That's probably the best way to understand it.
Interesting. So that's what I mean. So from a development manager to a construction manager, the next thing, I guess, is being able to be competent in understanding the finances of the development and the exit, whereas construction is really just that, how we're going to deliver the scheme.
Well, no, as a construction manager as well, I need to understand the finance. I need to be able,
Okay.
first of all, before we even do anything, we need to do a feasibility study. Is this project even feasible? Have you got your numbers right? You know, and as we go through, I'd be responsible for cash flow forecasting, for monitoring expenditure against the construction program, etc. And yeah, all right, if we move into the world of strictly property development, then I'd have to understand the exit strategy as well. But usually if I'm working on, let's say, an office fit out or infrastructure, the client is deciding the exit strategy.
Exactly, and I mean, you can have a say in that. I guess you can be consulted on what that exit strategy looks like. I mean, from there's so many different case studies that I can think of, but when you've got a scheme that's just been put through planning, and somebody passes it to you to say, "Hey, I want to build this out," which probably happens more often than not.
Yeah.
How many times is it possible for you to be able to decipher as to whether that's actually even feasible or not, or they've got the wrong scheme, or like the scheme is just too costly to build?
Yeah, in any project, I could work that out.
How long does it take you to kind of work things out? Because you've been doing it quite some time. Like, what sort of things do you need to be able to see? Do you need to see all the architectural drawings? What level of the drawings do you need to see?
No, first of all, I need to just see the outline planning drawings and the proposed scheme, and then I'll say, show me your costs, right? What are your estimated build costs, and what's your schedule, your construction schedule? And I'll look at it, and a lot of times I just go, right, well, without even delving into numbers, I just look at it, I go, no chance. You got no chance of building it for that, you know? Or you think you're going to do it in 6 months? No way. That's 2 years. You know what I mean? Go back to the drawing board and configure it. Or I see schemes that are so overcomplicated from the spec point of view. I think, why do you want all this stuff? Why do you want this all singing, all dancing, smart lighting system? These are just, you know, going to be student accommodation, or get rid of all that. What, now you need a specialist contractor and all that. Why are you, what's all this about? And people just say, well, I don't know, like someone told me it'd be a good idea. So a lot of my role is managing a developer or client's expectations. And another big part of my role is saying to the client, we need to de-risk this project, and the biggest risk here is you, because you're the only one here who don't know what you're doing. And that, you know, people don't like to hear that, but it's the truth.
It's the truth. I mean, look, it's interesting you pointing your finger at me. I mean, in terms of property development, investment and finance, over the last 20 years, probably the thing that I've been least enamored by is the whole construction process. I'm just not the kind of guy that gets on site generally. I started out as an estate agent, and then I've been in lending and finance, so I'm always in an office pushing paper rather than kind of lugging bricks and plaster around with me and knowing how things fit together. But I've always been interested, and it's obviously an incredibly important part of what we do.
Well, can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
Right?
This episode is sponsored by the PLMD Group. PLMD Group is made up of the PLMD Development, PLMD Estate Management, and PLMD Capital, providing expertise in real estate development combined with asset management. With more than 70 build-to-rent properties and £20 million of assets under management, PLMD's extensive knowledge of local planning policies have resulted in a strong track record, turning liabilities into valuable assets. The group delivers value through a fusion of experience, innovative design, imagination, hands-on management, and sustainable resources. To find out more about PLMD and the services they offer, head to plmdgroup.co.uk.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Right? If I went to any property networking meeting right now, and let's say there was 50 people in the room, I said, right, go around every single one. What are you into? I'm into the service accommodation. I'm into HMOs. I'm into refurbs. Blah, 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 blah. Right, tell me what industry you're in. 99% of people are saying I'm in the property industry, and I'd say you're all wrong. You are in the construction industry. You are in it as much as I'm in it. You always hear, oh, you make your money when you buy, right? Well, obviously that stands to reason. You want to get it at a good price. But it's no good getting it 50 grand below market value and then going 60 grand over the build cost, right? The property, yeah, if you're just buying blocks of flats, doing title splits, you're in property. You're just buying land, getting planning, sell it without, you're in property. You know, you buy a house today for $500,000, you sell it tomorrow for 600, you're in property. Anything that involves an element of construction, you are in the construction industry. You're not in property with a little bit of construction, you're in construction with a little bit of property. And so many people don't understand that. Because now you're coming up against geezers like my old man, rocking up on your job pissed, you know, with his mates, right? And he don't really care about your job, right? He just needs to get down that boozer. He knows he has to do work to get the money, and you're dealing with all this. So
no, I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
interestingly, so I've got one particular guy that comes to mind. Nice guy. He's got a bunch of cash, and he wants to build, and he wants to get into construction. He wants to develop something. And he's looking around at schemes, and typically these are like one-unit schemes. So either a house that's being refurbished into back into a lovely, beautiful family home, or building something from scratch out the ground, which is just a single unit. Start small, think big type approach. But he's just finding it really, really challenging to find anything that stacks because the landowner's price is too high. Or when he goes to get the quotes, like his most recent one was, how much is it going to cost to build? He literally had a quote from 300 to like 550. Which one's which? And so he doesn't know how to get involved. And well, the thing is, he needs to learn a bit more about construction and how it all fits together. Because I was telling him that the reality is that because it's a relatively small deal in the size and scale of property investments, there's a good chance that there's some builders out there that can build at cost that could probably do that deal themselves. Because what he ends up finding is by the time he's running all these numbers and getting completely confused, someone's gone and paid more than he would have paid anyway. So have they got their numbers wrong? Are they building at a much better rate? But it's probably with these sorts of things because they just know their construction inside out, and they feel confident of the end value. What do you think?
Oh, right. Well, property developers again. I see so many people. This thing about it cost £250 per square foot to build. And I think you just cannot work things out like that. On the back of a fag packet, when you're standing outside a property, you can do it like that. And you go, yeah, possibly it's worth looking at, or
Right.
just a straight no. But when you get into it, you need to drill down, you need to know your numbers. You really do. But you have to understand the property sector, like you're talking about this person wants to do one unit, is all influenced by the factors that drive the construction industry. You know, and the construction industry, the factors that drive that, we're subject to geopolitical fluctuations as well. There's massive things, supply chain, logistics, war in Ukraine, the Red Sea thing, you know, the rising cost of oil, so electric costs more, so manufacturing in factories for the materials cost more. There's all these things
Absolutely.
you've got to look at, and then you've got to look at the labour supply, and, you know, we're told that because of Brexit, we're short of 500,000 Eastern European workers have gone. But there's so much more to it than that. For example, the government have brought out this idiotic tax thing called IR35 for construction people. So for people at my level, we're going from paying 15-20% tax to 45-50. Well, they're not having it. They're all going to Dubai and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's got trillions, a 20-year, multi-trillion infrastructure project that's going now. And the going rate out there, the minimum for people like me is £1,000 a day, and it's all tax-free.
Wow.
Right? So, given that choice, the brain drain is going, you know. Even workers can go out there. They won't get the £1,000 a day, but they'll get a hell of a lot more than what they get. And all these things factor into why, when it comes down, you've got the novice property developer who's done a one-day, like, rent to rent deal stacking course, trying to work out the cost of a build. It just doesn't work like that, And when you're doing these developments and you're taking on builders, what you've got to understand, you're dealing with people who've been doing it their whole life. Now, the construction industry is very, very, very brutal. It's very, contentious and confrontational. A lot of these big companies, their business strategy is to not pay their subcontractors and send them into administration, right? So you get these subcontractors who've had a go in this world, they've been burnt badly, and they drop down. Now they're in the residential market, the property developing market. They've been burnt once, it ain't going to happen again. They're playing hardball, these people, right? But, you go to these property meetings, everyone's also nice, like everyone dresses up and says, hello, how are you? I'm here to help people, I'm looking for win-win scenarios. Then you're going out on site, you're coming up against these geezers, like, who, they're just like, they're not going to
have a chance.
They're not going to do you any favour. They're not going to rip you off, but they're playing hardball. They're protecting themselves, you know what I mean? And you've got to understand all this. And you've got to understand what things actually cost, and you're not going to do that if you don't educate yourself about construction and if you don't follow developments. For example, there was a report came out about 2-3 weeks ago now from the BCIS, which is the service that forecasts construction costs, etc. And it said that over the course of this year, material costs will fall by about 1.8%. But labour costs will go up by 8%. So if you've stacked a deal now, it's taken 6 months to get the planning, then a few months to get going. Have you factored in that 8% labour, right? You haven't, you know what I mean? And a lot of people, it's Sam, I don't know, if we'd be polite, we'll call it optimism bias, right? People who stack the deal, it don't quite work. Well, how about if I just cut that down? Oh, look, it works. You know what I mean? That's optimism bias. Let's just hope that it works out. And that's how people lose a lot of money,
Well, they hoped also that the property prices will start to go up in over that 6 months, and that'll kind of like make up the difference, and that's the part of the optimism bias in effect. It's really difficult though, right? So you've got experience. It's taken time to get that experience. In a day where we're on iPhones and this, that, and the other, and we want immediate gratification, it's really difficult to have someone that's young to get the patience, right? And then they go on these training courses where they're told, this is how you do it. Go out there and do it. And other than being patient and working hard, is there any other shortcuts?
I don't think there is, because this is a business, stacking deals, finding dwellings and improving them and making substantial amounts of money, profit, is a skill.
Yeah.
It's like any bit. I've got a good example. If we put a telly on now and there's a report saying, there's a worldwide shortage of cardboard boxes, right? Whereas you could sell them for £1, now you can sell them for £2. Would you just run out there? Would you look on the internet now, put an ad up, go, factory premises wanted, and just take the first factory and just run out and try to find raw materials for cardboard? You wouldn't. You'd find out the tax position. You'd find out what are your legal obligations as an employer. The machinery, does it need to be maintained? Are there health and safety laws? You would find out all this, and you'd come up with a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year business plan with cash flow forecast, with contingencies. You'd wait to recruit the right people. But people just steam into property because they've watched Homes Under the Hammer and they're in a free Facebook group that says no money down, infinite return on investment. It's so easy. Look, here's an 18-year-old that done his first deal, made $1 million. All you got to do is come on my course. The first day is free. There's 20 grand after that.
The
Do you know what I mean?
You know, I absolutely, and I think that I mean, that's hopefully what this channel is about as well. That we get to give people the reality of like, look, what you're doing is going to get you into massive debt. It's huge investments. Yes, there are huge rewards, but the people that are making those huge rewards are usually the ones that have gone through the path less trodden, the long way around, and earned their stripes along the way. So yes, you can make it, but you've got to be prepared to put in the hard yards at the same time. From a construction point of view, though, as well, from a contractor's point of view, they say that like a lot of contractors go bankrupt quite, frequently.
Yeah.
Why contractors? Why is it such a risky business? Why are the margins so tight? Why are they going under so frequently?
All right. You could, let's say you got a project on there, you got a builder, everything's going fine, the work's progressing as it should, you get on well with him, good quality, there's no hassle with the money. But what you don't know is he's got 10 other jobs going on, right? And 5 of them are going okay, 2 of them are causing him a problem, and 2 of them are in real serious trouble because he's subcontracting work off someone else and their client is not paying them. So you're wrapped up in this chain that you probably don't know about. And that's one of the reasons that smaller building firms go. If you're doing an HMO sign, you might just have a bloke in a white van. He's got a couple of friends with him. He knows a plumber, Spark Plus. That's the extent of his firm.
Yeah.
In his bank, he's got no money. He's probably living week to week. Maybe he's got a couple of grand. He's not set up to take a financial hit. When you say why do they constantly go under, a lot of these firms, they start off with a single man. Say me, Spark. I get offered a bit of work, bit more, but I think, I could make some money. Why don't I take on a few people? And I'm good at the work, and I work 7 days a week, and but I'm not good at running the business.
Yeah.
I'm not good at putting the VAT away. I'm not good at making sure all my men have got the correct training courses, health and safety. Then there's an accident on one of my jobs, and I'm up in court getting fined 75 grand. It's just wiping my firm out, There was one friend of mine, she had a project just down the road to me on the seafront. I won't bore you with the details, but it was a big house refurbishment. So anyway, I got my friend to quote the job, but he's a reputable builder, and he said 120 grand, right? And she said, that's far too much. So she got these 2 pair of jokers who said they'd do it for almost 50 grand less.
Oh my God.
Right, anyway, one thing. But turned out she had to get rid of them. She got
Too good to be true.
these other fools on it. And it ended up going nearly 100 grand over. And she spent a year in bed with a breakdown. And again, it's all that thing of, you should have gone with my mate. He's reputable. If he says it's 120 grand job, then it's an 120 grand job. That's what I'm saying. So, and these first pair that she threw off, it turned out what they were, one was a brickie and one was a plasterer, and they were working for a builder, just doing extensions. That's all they were doing. And they said to each other, we can have a go at this. Why don't we set up? We'll put some ads out, we'll get a van. And so they've took on her projects, and this was major, structure with massive steels in and everything. Way, way, way out of their league, And now they're just back probably working for wages for someone else. So, but if you, as a property developer, want to protect yourself from this, there is a way, and this is the tender process. It's using the form, the pre-qualification questionnaire. And one of the things in there you should ask is, please provide me with your last 3 years turnover, right? Because if my job's 250 grand, if all you've been turning over the last 3 years is 100 grand, this is a big step up for you.
Yeah,
right?
I can imagine.
So have you got credit accounts with suppliers if you need to take on 10 more men, can you pay their wages? And also you want to ask what other jobs they've got going on, because what you don't want is them to be over trading.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, stretched.
Because that means they'll start your job, they'll take a drawer off it, you'll go there one day, instead of 10 men being there, there'll be 2 because they're back finishing this other job. So it's doing due diligence on the contractors. And there's a process for that, that a lot of people either don't know about, or I can understand when you're new to this and you make the decision that you're going to have a go, right? And then you invest in £250,000 once you've bought.
And you want people to have a go at.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of capitalism, right? It's like, let's take a risk. Let's make a beautiful home. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
And so a couple of builders turn up, and finally one turns up, and you sort of get on well with him, you gel with him, and he's providing input, and you think, yeah, we could do business with it. He sounds like he knows what he's doing. And people find it very, very awkward to then go, right, before we move any forwards, I've got these forms here, due diligence, please provide me all that. People don't want to do that, you know what I mean? Yeah. It gets awkward, so it's all sealed on a handshake. And then the thing is like, can I have 20 grand up front? You know, and that is how it goes wrong for so many people.
So actually, exactly on that point, I put out a post on my social channels about and the hook at the beginning was builders are not going to like this, and it was about the fact that you should always pay your builders in arrears, and it got a lot of traction. To the point where there were a few builders that came out and said, "What, are you expecting us to bankroll this deal?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not expecting you to necessarily bankroll the whole project, but certainly you get paid for the works that are completed. And if you have a tight cash flow issue within your business, that's okay. That's also all right. We can just do valuations more frequently. We can do them on a weekly basis. We can do them fortnightly basis.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait monthly or quarterly." Which it became a point of contention. A lot of people obviously agreed. Typically, they were the developers, and then the people that are disagreeing were the builders, saying, we wouldn't ever do that. Some of them were being more reasonable, saying we'd want a deposit up front, whether it be 10% or 30% or whatever it is. But what's your take? How do you approach? How do you work with clients that are developers? What would you advise them on how to approach payment terms with contractors?
All right, so I can only speak from my own experience, right? Me personally, I never pay builders up front. Never. For several reasons. One, I come from the tier 1 contracting world where everyone's paid usually 90 days in arrears.
Exactly.
Right? And 2, it's like, look, mate, if you can't pay, this is your operation. If you can't fund your operation, that includes vans, petrol, materials and wages, for 1 month, you're basically insolvent, right? Now, I don't really want to get in a financial relationship with you. He will come back and say, I'm not insolvent, but it's a risk to me.
Literally.
Maybe I won't get paid. And 2, I'm not funding, bankrolling your job. So now we come to the allocation of risk. I completely understand what he's saying. Then I will, because contracts should fairly apportion the risk. People think a contract is all in the client's favour and it can be used to beat the builder over the head with if it goes wrong. And it's not like that at all. Risk should always sit with the person best suited to handle it, right? If that's a financial risk, I like this builder, I've seen his work, I've done due diligence on him, I've spoken to him many times, he does know what he's doing. He's telling me he needs, there's some bespoke windows, right, that there's a 6-month lead time on them and the factory wants 25 grand up front or they just won't make them. Fair enough. What I will do then, he's not best suited to handle that because he ain't got 25 grand. I am. But I don't need to give him the money. What I will do, I will go to the factory or I'll give it to him and say, make these windows, but I want a vesting certificate.
Yeah.
Right? That means those windows are mine. And I don't need them on site for 6 months. At any time within that 6 months, I can just turn up at the factory unannounced and say, show me my windows, right? Or if the contractor tells me he needs 10, 50, 100 grand up front to pay rate or whatever, okay, give me an advance payment bond. And what that is, it's an insurance certificate. He would go to an insurance company. Typically, he will pay for it. Cost him 2.5%. So if he wants an advance payment bond for 100 grand, he'll give them it's an insurance premium, 2.5 grand. The bond will be between me and the company. I'll give him the 100 grand. He don't do the work. He don't turn up, runs off of it. I'll just go to the company. Now the risk has been correctly apportioned. It's been mitigated from both parties, right? But if you don't want to do that, my flat answer is just no. It's a risk. It's a risk, and this is just how business goes. But if he was to go, let's say he's quoted me 100 grand, and he thinks, right, I could fund that, but I'll have to get a business loan, which is going to cost me 2 grand over the life of the project. If he just stuck that on his tender without telling me that it's for the finance charges, and that's 102 grand, and I still want him to work, I'd be more than happy with that, you know. But how you run your business is nothing to do with me. And if you can't afford to run it, honestly, mate, I don't care.
No, it's totally fair. I think the biggest concern that I totally agree with, coming from the contractor side, is that risk of, and one of them came back and said it was a waste of time. You know, I had to go through court, and it was. I said, well, what was the gap between the difference? And he said it was 3 weeks, which, you know, for a small building firm, you know, if you're not getting paid, it is frustrating. And normally, because they're small building firms, they can probably do keener prices because they've got lower overheads. And I think it's just the nature of that end of the market. When you're dealing with tier one contractors, completely different. As you say, payment terms can be on 90 days. They're fully transparent on all of their balance sheet and their revenue and the projects that they're working on, and they're literally prepared for that during the tender process. And then I think at one end of the spectrum and the other end, and then there's the middle bit, which is like these SMEs that are doing like 9-unit schemes, and you've got to rely on fledgling or growing kind of contractors and subcontractors, and there's all these moving parts, and it just gets a little bit messy. So I've also of the same opinion, just to keep things simple, just work in arrears and find somebody. And there's normally somebody that will do that. And from a development point of view, because I'm a developer, I think primarily, and I think developers take on more risk overall in terms of all the variables and all the moving parts, and that's why they get paid the biggest reward at the end. They should just stick with their guns and find people that are willing to work with them on that basis. And I think from a construction management point of view, where you're acting on behalf of the client, I mean, you get employed by the developer more so than the contractor, right?
Yeah, always by the developer.
So then you're kind of almost favouring their interest, and therefore you kind of fall on that side of things.
Yeah, but if we flip that a bit, any contractor, if they're going to you want not 9 new build houses, let's say it's £250,000 per house. I don't know, it's £2.5 million, right? As a contractor, I want to do my financial due diligence on you.
Yeah.
So I want to see your agreement with a bridging company. I want to see your cash in the bank. I want to check your credit file. I want to check you up on Companies House and do a Google search on you. Because once we press the button, once we've signed contract, now, you know, I can't find out further down the road you've got a long history of knocking people.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a business. This is a profession, right? We're two sides of the business. We're not, you know, hopefully we can come together and we'll both profit, but we can't be going on, let's just hope for the best. And, he's not, I like that builder. He's telling me it's his granddaughter's birthday. He ain't got the money to buy her a new bike. Could he have a grand up for that? Couldn't care less, like, you know.
There's two stories come to mind recently. One by the guy who was building 17 flats in Cardiff, and he, unfortunately, the contractor went bust. But they were good guys, like you said, probably a little bit like those plasterers, you know. But they probably took on a little bit more than they could do. I wasn't there, so I couldn't say for sure. But that's what was fed back to me. And unfortunately, they just had to fold, and he had to get somebody else in. There's another one though. It's a smaller case that would be interesting to get your take on, whereby it's a refurb of a house. It's going to have a loft conversion. So pretty straightforward stuff. I mean, the refurbs for houses used to cost like 30 grand or something, 40, 50 grand maybe tops, if you're going to do it really high end. This one's coming in at like well over 100. And it's got the loft, okay, the loft conversions are costing more and more these days. Now, the thing is, to make the deal work the way that she wants it to, it really needs to come in at about 140 plus VAT, maybe 150. But we're getting quotes in at 180 and 200 as well. And then the odd person saying, well, we could maybe make it work at 140, 150. How easy is it to go look through a scope of works and say, and a spec to say, actually, if we, it's probably going to be about 180, but if we pull back on this, pull back on this, pull back on this, we could probably get it all done at 150, and you could probably get the end value to be £1 million and get that build cost. But we just need to sacrifice on these. How difficult is it to go through that process?
It's not difficult at all, and that's why it's so crucial to have a spec and a full scope of works, because then when you're comparing them with different contractors, you're comparing apples with apples, and you should, if I can just sort of divert a little bit, the way I do things now with these constant build cost rises, etc. For the projects I do myself, the model I just use this company. What I do, I'll stack the deal, I'll get my spec, my scope of works, my drawings, etc. I'll look through the RICS database, I'll use their values, see what it should cost. Then I go to this other company, and what they do, they will just provide everything down to the last nut, bolt and screw, right? And they will always say, right, let's look at your spec. Right, we can substitute that for that. It's exactly the same British standards, etc. It's just where they've just got such massive purchasing power and networking that there'll be makes you've never heard of, but they're exactly the same. And overall, they bring the cost of those materials down round about 20 to 25%.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So if you're building 10 year, and also they'll deliver as well. So now I'm not waiting for a plumber's merchant, a builder's merchant, a timber merchant, a painting and decorating firm. I've got one point of contact. Every week before 10 o'clock on a Monday morning, I'll get a big delivery of everything I need, for the week.
The thing that sometimes might come to mind is like, wow, that's such a big discount. Either it's too good to be true, or I don't know, is it coming from China? Or like, what is it? Just that this procurement is like they've got very.
They're just buying at such large volume.
Right.
What you got to think, stuff will come. Say the bit of wood for this table, it'll come from the manufacturer, and it'll cost £1, and then it'll go down to a distributor. It now costs £1.15. Then it'll go to a wholesaler. It now costs £1.30.
Right.
And then you're getting it through your builder. It now costs £1.45. They're going straight to the manufacturer.
Nice.
They can sell it cheaper than the wholesaler, put profit on, and still make their money. And that's the price you're getting it at. And it's not from China. And everything's got to conform to the British standard.
Just to caveat.
I know what you're saying.
It is fair to say that people associate poor quality with China, I guess.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, no. And that is how you can go, this is the end result I want. This is the spec I want, but I can't afford it. I'll take this spec. I still got exactly the same end result. Now I can afford it.
Yeah. I mean, that would be something really, really valuable to this particular person and anybody, really, especially when you're talking about the BCIS data showing that labour costs are going up. Like, that's a large chunk of your development. They always say a third. It doesn't always work like that. But it's a massive chunk is construction. And if you can keep those costs down, that's going to give you your margin.
It's massive, and also it's the procurement. It's the headache that you're dealing with all these people. And this one ain't replied to my email. This one ain't answering his phone. that one, their delivery is late, and when it did turn up, it was the wrong, or it wasn't all there. You're dealing with all that as well as the cost, you know. So yeah, it's all I do now. I just take contractors on a labour-only basis. Give me a price for this on a labour-only basis, you know. And now there's none of this. Oh, I've got to shoot off, go down to Builders Merchant, and yeah, where were you Friday? I come down at 2 o'clock. There was no one there. Yeah, we had to go and pick up the gear for Monday and all that. All that is gone. Your hours are 7:30 to 5 o'clock, Monday to Friday. You don't need to leave. All the gear will be here. Don't worry about it.
I like the sound of that. There's an interesting platform as well, and the guy I speak to him quite frequently. Last year, development finance requirements from a broker's perspective have been down year on year, and no surprise as to why that might be. And for C-Link, have you ever heard of C-Link?
I have, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
good thing I remember, otherwise you'd probably kill me because I don't remember. But C-Link, yeah, so that's an interesting procurement of subcontractors. Is that like, there must be more with technology and stuff, more of these types of platforms. Have you been noticing that these sorts of tech solutions are actually helping the construction industry?
Well, I do know that C-Link. 'Cause I've spoken to them, and their model is great. You can see the value.
Good.
And yeah, there are more and more of these things coming along. I went to a networking meeting last night. I was talking to an architect. Now, I don't know if you've heard of the circular economy.
Not in that particular way now.
Probably in the old days we would call it recycling. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
I've heard of recycling.
Yeah. So she's very into, if you want to call them green issues or whatever. And she's refurbishing her house at the moment. And she refuses to buy anything new, you know. So she's ripped out the old bathroom suite, and now she's installing a second-hand bathroom suite. Well, I mean, if that's what you're into, you know, okay, fair enough. But
The avocado greens now a pink, the pink
yeah,
one.
Exactly. That's, you know, each to their own. And but she was saying we have a massive issue in this country because typically the old model would be if we want to refurbish that warehouse over there into flats, first thing we'd do, we'd just go in, we'll rip everything out and we'll throw it in the skip, right? And we'll do everything brand new. And there's platforms now where the salvageable material will be salvaged. It'll be put up on this platform. So if you're doing a job down in Devon, say, and you want, I don't know, some particular old tiles from the 1930s, you go on this platform, oh, look, they've got some up in Glasgow, you know, and stuff like that is
I mean, it's interesting. I think
Yeah.
it's a cottage industry more so than a scalable kind of sustainable model for.
Well, if you look
Is
at
it-
if you look at Chartered Institute Building, RICS, Rebar, Institute of Structural Engineers, all these professional organisations, they are all heavy advocates of this, and all the big tier one companies all signing up to it. Now, you know, call me cynical. Maybe they don't care about it, but it's good. So, oh yeah, we're in it. So, oh yeah, of course, you know, climate change. Well, we're doing our bit. So this will become more mainstream in the future. It's not quite there yet.
And what's your favorite type of deal? Like, you know, because we've talked about tier one stuff and, you know, infrastructure projects and master plans. And then we've talked about your 3-bed refurb with a loft conversion and everything in between. Where, with your level of experience, do you enjoy being?
Oh, okay. So I'm doing one at the moment. I'm working for a very wealthy, ultra high net worth person, and we're doing a luxury penthouse in Mayfair, and that is just beautiful. That is, because you phone him up. Oh, yeah, I've got a problem here. It's going to cost 16 grand. He goes, why are you phoning me up? Just do it. Just spend it. You know?
Spending the petty cash.
Oh, it's lovely, you know. And I used to do quite a few of them in Belgravia and Mayfair for a Russian oligarch. Of course, the Ukraine thing started, he had to leave and that stopped. But those are my favourite. Personally, what I'm into now, I would always go for new builds, always, because if you get the cost right, you are guaranteed to make a chunk of money, you know. And with the housing shortage, there will never be a shortage of demand for, you know, new houses. What I'm focusing on though, at the moment, I'm just auction properties, all below 250, around Norfolk, Suffolk, that Essex, that sort of area. Below 250, so I only pay the minimum stamp duty.
Yeah.
Nice and easy, 50 grand refurb maybe, 75 grand profit. Lovely. All you got to do is get it set up. You ain't really got to go there. It's a little thing you can do in the background, and you got these regular chunks of 50, 75, 100 grand just floating in on top of your day job or whatever you do.
And those ones, so either luxury end or the super small. I call
I
them.
can't afford to do the luxury end.
I was going to say I was going to call them no risk though as well, because I would say low risk because, funnily enough, I similarly pre 2010 was always doing sub 1 million stuff, and then post 2010 similarly continued doing sub 1 million, because I think when you take on larger construction projects, the intricacies and the complexities can become quite crippling as well, because you're doing stuff that's probably it can go very, very wrong. And so I've just stuck to the smaller stuff for me, because I can, as you say, have a day job. I can do something else while people are on site, do the valuations, make sure everything's ticking over. And if things were to go wrong, it's never going to go that far wrong.
Yeah. You know, if you want to do big developments, fine. It just depends how much hassle are you willing to put up with. For example, I got offered one. I say got offered, it came across desk the other day. It was a 3-storey sort of townhouse in Marylebone High Street, and it had planning permission to extend and convert into 9 flats. But it was 10 million asking price, right? Then you got to get the development finance. Well, you got to come up with a 3.5 million cash first. But then now you're dealing with a massive project team. You're dealing with Marylebone Council, whatever that falls into, Westminster, I'm not sure, for closing roads off with deliveries. You got a 1.5 year builds. You're dealing with big contractors, non-stop meetings, architects, planners. Do you really want all that? So I haven't got the head space for that anymore. You know?
Yeah, you've been there, done that.
Yeah, been there, done that. You know, and some people would love it because it's a step up and it's all exciting. With me, it's just headache, and it is risk.
Yeah.
This
100%.
is the other thing.
The longer a project goes on for, the more things can go wrong.
Well, that's why, you know, I'm a real big advocate for modern methods of construction. We're going to come to that next.
No, literally.
Oh,
Great minds think alike.
yeah. So, from a project manager's point of view, if I was building in the old days, let's say 50 houses, right? I've probably got a 2-year project. I've got anything up to, at the busiest point, 200 men on site. I've got the weather to deal with. I've got non-stop deliveries turning up. I've got non-stop chasing up deliveries. I'm annoying the neighbours coming out. Oh, you know, your bloke's parking over my driveway. And you got all that. But the more men you got on site for a longer period, the more chance of accidents. And accidents can be devastating to a project. Someone gets hurt, the entire project stops. Plus, you got all the management of them.
Yeah.
So if you can shorten that project duration and you can shorten that workforce, you've got less risk and you've got less headache. If you can just have the stuff built in a factory, brought down on a lorry with a crane and just lift it into place, it's happy days, you know. All the waste is done away with. The poor workmanship is done away with because it's all quality assured in the factory. You know, it's a real, without a doubt, it's the way forward. And the cost of it now, it's either comparable or it's actually less.
It's getting there, yeah. Because I remember like 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, a lot of people were saying, well, it might speed you up on site or it might kind of get you around weather constraints and stuff. But overall, the cost is not that dissimilar. But if it's starting to come down, I think then it's...
It has definitely, it's on a par, or depending what you use, it could even be less. However, from a you know, an ex-tradesman's point of view, I'm dead against it because all the jobs it will take away. You know, all youngsters who leave school with no qualifications, you could always go and get a trade. And if you were a grafter, you wanted to put yourself out and do the 7 days a week, you could make money. With that money, you could buy property, get some buy to
Get yourself set up.
get a bit of social mobility. They're all gone. When you go to these factories now, they're just semi-skilled factory production line jobs, you know. But I suppose that's the way it is. But from a developer's point of view, if you want to de-risk your development, I think modern methods of construction is the way forward. The only downside is if you're getting bridging finance or development finance, they're not going to want to pay up.
They don't like the upfront deposit you got to put on account.
Some enterprising individual will see a gap in that market and will step in.
We do. We've done a bunch of that stuff, and we've managed to negotiate between both parties. Everybody wants to get the deal done, and everybody kind of agrees, okay, this is probably going to be the best because we've looked at all the alternatives. And what they've ended up agreeing is that the amount of money that was required from the manufacturer, we'll minimize that, we'll put it into stage payments, and they've just managed to get it to a point where it's kind of feasible, where the risk is understandable from the manufacturer's point of view and from the lender, and the money goes on account, because obviously the developer doesn't have that kind of cash flow, hence the reason why they're going for development finance. So we've just, because always initially the manufacturer's like, I want 50% up front. Like, well, that's not going to work. So we've managed to kind of get it to work on more stage payments.
Right.
It doesn't always work, but there are some lenders that I know that are kind of comfortable with that, because they understand as well, we're going to get more certainty around the build schedule, the price, the quality control, and those are the big benefits. Now there's things like SIPs, LGS. What other sorts of ones are really good?
Well, you got timber framed houses, you got a closed panel timber frame system that's already insulated and that before it's installed. Light gauge steel, like you say, you got ICF insulated concrete frame, where you put a polystyrene blocks up.
That's very much like Lego almost. Slot them
just
together.
Fill them up with concrete. You've got that, timber frame, said that, didn't I? Yeah, SIP panels, they're great, you know. And now they've got, only a couple of years ago, I think you could only build two stories, I think, with SIPs. Now you've got structural load-bearing ones, so you can build higher. Yeah, like I say, it's the way forward.
You've got lots of experience. Tell me one horror story.
Oh, mate, well, out of all the thousands.
Exactly.
Let me think. Well, there's one comes to mind. I did some work for this property developer, probably back in, I'd say around about between 2008 and 2010. And it was a time everyone was getting into it because the finance was available, credit was available, and homes under the hammer was really a big thing. So anyway, I'm working for this bloke, and it was in this quite nice apartment down in South Kensington. I don't know what he paid for it or whatever. But anyway, it was just a disaster, right? He did not know what he was doing. He didn't have a clue, the bloke. And he had all cheap labour on there, and they'd got it all wrong, everything. And how it ended up, I remember him at one point saying to me, I've run out of money, I've remortgaged the house, I'll get it over the line, there's a lot of profit in this, right? And I remember that was one particular thing he said to me. So it went on, and it was just getting worse, really. Like the mistakes he was making were worse. In the end, I finished my bit of work for him, and he couldn't pay me. And
oh no,
I had to give him the electrical test certificates that he couldn't sell it without. And I said, well, I'm not giving them unless you pay me, you know. But I said, listen, mate, right? I don't get a cut of the profits, so I ain't taking a cut of the losses, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
He said, oh, okay, I'll pay you. And the last time I ever saw him, I met him at Fenchurch Street Station in London. I was going home, it was the rush hour, it's 5 o'clock, like hundreds and hundreds of people walking past. And so I met him, I gave him the certificates, he gave me my money, and he had his head in his hand, said, what am I going to do? I went, oh, I don't know. Good luck, you know. And he was crying, and he was a grown man.
Oh, my God.
Sitting outside Fenchurch Street Station, hundreds of, and I just walked off and left him there. I don't know whatever come of it, but, you know, look, if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Shit.
You know, he wanted to give it a big un and have a chunk of this wealth, but he weren't up for it. So I don't know what happened to that bloke. Yeah, terrible.
Well, yeah, in the end, you could end up crying.
He's broken, the bloke. He was absolutely broken.
Got to be prepared for the worst then.
Yeah, it's a business. It's not a game.
I've got a few final quick questions for you. Do you prefer being a consultant or a developer?
A consultant, because
Why?
I'm not risking my money.
Yeah. But then at the same time, you're risking your time, but then you don't make as much money as a developer necessarily, would you?
As a consultant, you mean?
Yeah.
Depends. I consult for some pretty big projects.
But then imagine if you're that big project, if you were the developer, there's probably a bigger, because as a consultant, as a finance consultant, advisor, broker, I always look at the project and I go, well, I'm taking a teeny tiny piece of this.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
Compared to what the developers make. But then the developers probably risking a lot more and taking a lot more time to piece all this together. But I'm similarly in a comfortable position as a finance broker. If I had to decide, it's a very difficult decision actually, because I've probably been doing small scale developments over the last 20 years, more so than anything else. I'm starting to ask myself the same question. I never asked that. But yeah, fair enough. Consultant, I'm probably in the same camp as you, to be fair. I really like my role.
Just because I can walk away from the headache, people will pay me to tell them what to do. If they don't do it, good luck to you, you know. Yeah. Phone me up when it's all gone wrong. There's another charge for me coming back, you know. But I've told you what to do. You didn't do it, no problem. Now, whereas if I do my own developments, I know what's got to be done, but then I've actually got to do it.
But then surely from that point of view, isn't it like, well, I know where the risks are and therefore I can mitigate them better?
Yeah, there is that, but I'm doing a bit of both, you know.
Yeah,
so,
you are doing a bit of both.
Yeah.
So what is the best piece of advice that you've ever had?
Oh, I can't use that language on air.
Don't be shy.
No. Best bit of advice? Don't know. Can't remember. I've had loads of good advice. All through my life from loads of people. I can't think what the
We'll come back to that one for the next episode.
the
then.
best bit is. Yeah.
What's the worst piece of advice you've ever had?
Go to work, pay taxes, and trust the government to look after you.
Fair play, good one. All right, and in terms of, you're obviously a property professional, construction professional through and through. This program is about property people. What does it take to become, what sort of traits do you need to have to be a successful property person, in your opinion?
Right, okay. So I would say the most important thing is treat this like a business, right? Drop the amateur attitude. That always, you see all these, in these property groups and whatever, the quote of, don't wait to be perfect, just get started and learn it along the way. But then when you get a builder turn up and destroys your job because he's useless, you don't go, oh, that's all right, he's just getting started, you know, he's learning as he goes. You don't like it when I've put that. This is serious, right? This can be life-changing as a property. You can secure your family's future, you can have independence and everything, but it's a business. As much as there's big chunks of money to be made, there's equally as big chunks of money to be lost, right? So take it seriously, you know, surround yourself with people who know what they're doing. Stop looking for the free advice. Put your hand in your pocket and go and pay the people who know what they're doing, you know. And once you start, it's a commitment to yourself to get this done. It's, you know, don't accept any excuses from yourself or others. Get out there, make it happen. You can have it. It's all yours to have, but it ain't going to happen. It's down to you to get out there and make it happen.
Love it. Dave, if people wanted to find you, reach out to you, contact you, connect with you, what's the best way they can find you?
Probably on LinkedIn, or my website is really easy. It's www.daveford.com.
And we'll leave all the links in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I hope to catch up with you so we can talk about the future of the construction industry in a lot more detail and how those modern methods of construction have helped us out.
Yeah, love to.
Thanks again.
All right, thanks, Sam.